All
Sounds
right.
good.
Great. Hey there, leader. Today we are talking story with everyone's Uncle George. And here we go with the last name. And you can tell that I am not Hawaiian. Kilikane. How's that? Is that almost right?
Almost right.
Almost right. Uncle George, as I call him, as well as so many other people fondly call him, was born and raised on the west side of Oahu, Hawaii. He has spent a lot of his younger years in and around the water, fishing, diving, and surfing. He is a devoted husband to wife Connie, is the father of four, and has been blessed with 7 grandchildren. In 2010, Uncle George started Bay of Dreams, a gift that has touched people from around the world. Uncle George, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, good morning. Good morning. I see that you are at your stomping grounds there in Waianae at the bay, which is a beautiful backdrop for everybody who will be looking at the video portion of this. And if you're listening to the podcast, you may want to hop over to the YouTube channel and see the beautiful bay if you've never been there. So thank you for that backdrop.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah, and that's a real backdrop. It's not like on Zoom where people put up uh, the backdrops.
Yeah, you'll be watching the sun come up shortly, and
All right.
the lighting
Yes.
will change, and
Yeah, we're
pretty cool.
recording. It is like 6 a.m. In Hawaii on the island of Oahu right now. So certainly appreciate you, up an early riser to come and just share about this gift that you give so many people. And so I'd love to just jump right in and just hear your story about Bay of Dreams and really how that started for you.
Okay, sure, we can get started. Well, Babe Jean started a while ago, almost 10 years, actually over 10 years ago, and it was because I had a need to basically get fit.
Mm.
I was having some physical challenges. I had just kind of wrapped up being daddy. Kids are old enough to move out of the house and kind of do their own thing. And I realized that through that process of being daddy, I had gained a ton of weight, had some health issues. And to those challenges, I had to go figure out how to overcome them. And came across paddleboarding.
Now you were when you were younger you did regular surfing, is that correct? When you were
Yeah, I
younger.
did regular surfing, seeing paddleboarding at an older age. But again, I was so busy being dad, I never had a chance to get on a board or anything like that.
Mhm.
So my intent when I did decide to get into paddleboarding was not to paddle around the bay and look at the fish and the turtles, was actually to figure out at my 300-pound size how I can get a paddleboard into a wave. I wanted to figure out the
Wow.
surf with it. I didn't want to just paddle around. And I understood that at that weight, I couldn't get a normal size surfboard into a wave by just paddling with my
Okay.
hands. So I had some canoe background. I had some a lot of surfing background. So I kind of put the two together, the paddling and the surfing. And through that process, figured it out. Started surfing, catching waves. Through that enjoyment of being on the water, and I was able to drop some weight and
Yeah, which
change
which
my
is
life
awesome.
basically.
And
Yeah,
it did change your life, not only for the physical sense and all that you accomplished with that, but then just leaning into what you learned and what you experienced and then sharing it with others, right?
yeah. So if you move forward a little bit, what had happened? It was I was actually sitting in a discipleship class here. Our church was hosting a conference, and speakers from out of town. And one of the things he said at the very beginning, he said, "You can do discipleship wherever you want."
Yes.
So I started off, said, "Oh, cool! I can go do it at the Bay." And so I decided at that moment that I would use stand up paddling as my platform uh, to introduce Christ to the people
Mhm.
and my love for God and how He had blessed me through the sport. And yeah, that's how the start of Bay of Dreams started. There was a man, within the class, there was actually a couple that came from Arizona to Hawaii. They convinced their church that, man, we should go to Hawaii for this conference. And
Not a bad
they
deal.
showed up, and I had him the conference from Monday to Friday. I said, hey, let's head to the beach Wednesday morning before the conference started, and I'll give you a paddleboard lesson, and we'll go paddle around the bay a little bit. And that was the kind of the start of it all. So pretty cool.
That is very cool. Yeah, I know that, I had just the joy of living on the island of Oahu for about 4.5 years. And I remember hearing about paddleboarding, Uncle George, and and I'm like, I'm gonna just have to reach out and check that out. And I remember going to your Facebook page, the Bay of Dreams Facebook page, and it said all you need to do is reach out and ask Uncle George, Uncle George, would you give me a paddleboard lesson? And I
Yeah,
found
that
that,
was
yeah, I just found that just so interesting that somebody would just give. I mean, that is just a servant's heart if I have ever, seen one. And so it's just amazing how, I came out, my husband and I came out and we got a lesson and we heard this incredible story, which I'm going to have you kind of touch on, as really an inspiration prior to even going on the water. But I remember just the joy of the experience of being one with the water, God's creation, and then coming out there another time. I brought another military spouse out with me so she could experience it. So I know it's brought joy to me as well. As how many people have you given this gift to?
roughly about 14,500 people. So a bunch.
14,500 people.
Yeah,
It's
they got
incredible.
free lessons. It's
Yeah.
kind of crazy thinking about it 10 years down the road, because at the beginning it was pretty raw. I really didn't have the expertise to get people on the board. But as I gave a lesson, I learned. I gave another lesson, I learned. I gave another lesson, I learned. And then it came to a point where I actually asked one of my neighbors to teach me, because he was doing demo classes for his business. He would teach people he would show people how to paddleboard and hope they buy one of their boards. So I asked a good friend of mine, Senpai, to come kind of give me some one-twos on how to go about giving these lessons. And even him, he didn't know and understand what really was going on, because it looked kind of odd at the beginning. Why would this guy sit there and let people use his boards and talk story and get them on the water? And I think my goal was from the beginning was to actually qualify to be Uncle George. Here in Hawaii, uncle is just respect for that person. I have
Yes.
people that call me uncle that's 20, 30 years older than I am, but because of our relationship and their respect, yeah. So I said, man, I'm going to do this Uncle George deal and earn the respect of people through my actions, through my story, through how I treat them, and through that process I have. And so much so that people have brought people back time and time again, and like how you did. That happens often. Well, man, you got to go. In the beginning, it was, man, this guy and why are they giving away these free paddleboard lessons? It took about a year and a half to it turn, well, man, you got to go to Bay of Dreams and hear Uncle George's story. And then after that, you get to go paddleboarding. So I like that
Yeah.
it turned, and the aspect of the story and the why part creates enough curiosity uh, for people to come.
Yeah. So what is that story? When people come, they say, Uncle George, will you give me a lesson? What can they expect?
Or they can expect to meet a Hawaiian man that's born and raised on the west side, like you said, uh, but a man that cares for people
Yes.
and loves the interaction between people and talking story and visiting and getting to know people to a point where I can help them. I think one of my blessings is the fact that I created these relationships through sharing this gift of stand up. And through those relationships, because that relationship started at the tail end or of of that person's life at that moment. meaning that I don't know them prior to coming to the Bay. So there's
Right.
no prejudging them for whatever's. So when they give me information and we start this relationship, I get the information that they choose to give me that I can act upon. I think so often in lives when we have family members or people that we grew up with that has an interpretation of how I should be many years down the road, but they actually haven't been with me all that time. So why should they use that to make a decision on how I'm going to turn out?
That's
And
right.
so through that process, I got to qualify myself as Uncle George, you know, because I shared the story of growing up and overcoming challenges, and in recent years dealing with the loss of mom and dad and
Hmm.
some stuff at work. But how I am human like everybody else, and how I personally deal with the challenges and turn challenges into blessings.
Hmm. And that's so important, and, as leader, we are to develop relationships. We are to use our gifts, to help others and encourage others. And I truly see as what you
Oh,
are
I did
doing.
you better.
Hey there. That's okay.
I'm on a call right now. I'm doing video call. Sorry.
That's just the way it is.
Yeah, we get visitors.
Yes, it's okay. That's because you're famous.
Yeah,
But it's an example of ordinary people doing extraordinary things, and that's truly how I see the work that you're doing. And yes, I mean you have a job that you go to, but then you have this beautiful blessing that has been part of your life. That's okay. That's what
more
editing's
visitors.
about.
No, I think the goodness of or whatever I am called is to value to the world because I am that. I'm just a Hawaiian man from Nanakuli. And if you ask the world where's Nanakuli, they probably don't know, but that doesn't matter. The fact that you don't know makes it more important. That anybody from any given place that has this passion to give a gift away, whatever that gift is, can create relationships. And through those relationships, they're going to get the opportunity to impact lives. Yeah. So
Yes,
a
yes.
lot of times people get caught up with what I got to do for to do this and do that. And most of the time, you just get excited about what you're doing and share that excitement with some people. It
That's
doesn't have to
right.
be one particular thing. It just has to be your jazzy thing that you get excited about. Go do that and watch the people get attracted to you through your excitement. And then share the word with them. Show them how he has blessed you and how he's gifted
Hmm.
you. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like how I
yeah.
started with 2 paddle boards and now I take 40 boards.
That's
You know,
amazing. That's
yeah.
amazing. Because that's increased since when I was there.
Yeah.
A lot of things have been different. I mean, you even had some difficulties because it's not without, when you start being successful. I remember that story about at one point they didn't want you parking your trailer there at the bay, and that was difficult, right?
Yeah. There was a restriction on the parking and I had to park the trailer further away to be legal. But we worked
Yes.
it out and life is better now. Stay patient.
Mm,
Everything is on God's timing. We can get
yes.
all jazzed and excited about stuff, but in the reality of the world that I exist in, it's it's not my schedule. I
That's
just a
right.
participant. Yeah,
If more people could get that, that you are just a participant, right? I love that.
yeah,
You just have to show up. And what I love, you said about, how really, what do you get excited about? So, what is that passion that's burning in your heart? And how you have created this ministry out of stand up paddleboard. And to some people, they may think, how can that be a ministry? But when you are sharing what God has put in your heart with other people, that is truly a ministry.
it is. And I wasn't calling it a ministry at the beginning, but as I witnessed God work through me, it kind of evolved into this crazy ministry. And now I get to do the what if button. And I
Mm.
work at a refinery, and in a refinery, we have a program. What if I move X amount of barrels of a product over to another tank? What would the numbers change? So you put in the equation, you push the what if button, it shows you what happens. Yeah. So in my situation, I literally pushed the what if. What if I went to the bay and lay down 2 boards in the sand and lift up my hand and said, I can do this for God's glory. I will give away these free lessons. What if? And I did that, and through that process, I was successful in sharing my gift. And through that process, He has blessed me with so many great relationships. People that I can talk to, like yourself, from across the world, and just visit and say, "Hi, how are you doing?" Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, get jazzed about what you're excited about in the point where you'll create some attention, share that attention, create relationships. Listen more than you talk, and to that
Mm.
process, you'll be
Yes,
blessed. You'll
that's
be
right.
blessed.
Yeah, I
Because I'm a
imagine.
talker and I can talk, but when I come around, especially new people, uh, it's limited to my story. But once I get into a predicament or a situation where we can talk face to face, man, it's all about listening. You
Mm.
cannot help anyone without knowing their challenge.
Yeah.
And the best way to figure out what their challenge is to listen.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great leadership skill right there. So, what might be some of those, your ears perked up to hear? What are some of those challenges that maybe you've experienced with some of the people that have come to the Bay over the last several years? Some of those stories.
I think a lot of the challenge in this day and age is the fact that most people, because of technology, because of what we have available in this world, have too many options, and they don't know what to really do, what to pursue, what to go get a hold of, what degree to get, and how to do this and how to do that. And so one of the things that I like to do is have people meet me at the bay bright and early, and we'll go out there on
Just
the
like
board.
this.
Yep, go out on the water and watch the sun come over the mountain, and call it
Mm,
a new day, a new opportunity, a chance to make decisions and then go make them right by your actions. Yeah. A lot of people make decisions and they never make them right because they never put the action behind them. They
hmm.
just say, I can go do this, but they never really do it because they never put any action behind it. But I think we have a responsibility once we make a decision to go make that decision the right one by our actions.
Hmm.
And so I
Yes.
think a lot of people recently uh, are trying to still feel their way, regardless of their age, because they never found their purpose or they never got really connected to something that drives them to go do something. And it's kind of weird that I did say that we're part of this piece, but if you understand from the get-go that you're part of one process and we're being used to achieve this amazing thing, it becomes easier and to get in the word and to follow God's message and to understand His purpose for you. And I think
Yeah.
more people should take quiet time and go ask Him, God, what am I supposed to be doing today?
Hmm.
What am I supposed to do tomorrow when this thing unfolds and I can go out of my house? What's happening?
Yes.
I tell people all the time, I said, if you have an issue and you have a situation and God had to literally sit you down because of that challenge, whether it's a car accident or a virus or something, you should spend some quality time figuring out why did he sit you down? Why did he pause your life so dramatically to get your attention and therefore find that answer? Something must have
Yes.
been going awry. You know, I'm
Yes.
blessed. I've been working throughout this whole process. Connie been blessed in our family. We're watching the grandkids. We're fortunate, and I just flip that in. Okay, I say in the sweet spot of this operation as this piece in this game, and therefore my course doesn't need to be changed. That's how I look at my situation, and
Yeah.
just stay fast to the process. I must be doing something right because all is working out. So let's stay to the process. Let's continue doing what we're doing. And a lot of people don't realize that when they're put on pause for whatever reason, that pause was to allow them to figure out what truly they needed to be doing with their life, because they're not on the right track.
That's right. Yeah, I think this is a time of correction
Yeah,
where if you do lean in and ask yourself those questions that you just said, what am I supposed to be doing with my life? How can I be more obedient to the call? Am I hearing the call? Right? Sometimes we don't hear the call of God because we're not tuning in, we're not getting quiet like you talked about. And the Bay is certainly a beautiful place to be able to connect with God.
yeah, I
See, you're
agree.
famous. They're all your fans are coming around you. I can hear them.
Well, do you have a morning gang? I was actually trying to find a quiet spot so that we can have some quiet time. But what had happened is it's a little bit breezy, so I'm kind of behind a big tree to block the
Oh,
wind from the
nice.
speakers there, and so the locals are getting up, I guess.
Yes. Good morning, Hawaii.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But it's all good.
It is all good. It is all good. I love it. I miss Hawaii so much. My husband Paul and I were thinking about coming there. We just celebrated our 10th wedding anniversary, and we thought about coming back, this year. But now this year is kind of, a different year, which is okay. But it is on my radar to come back and just allow myself to just embed myself once again in the culture of Hawaii, even if it's for a week or 10 days, and just soak that up, because there is something about the people of Hawaii. It is a melting pot of different cultures, but it is just. It's like when I moved off island, it was like, oh, people beep their horn. It was a very different culture and lifestyle, where the island of Oahu just allowed me time to um, get peaceful within myself. And there's just something very, very special for me, and obviously for you, because you're still there and you're able to, share this ongoing gift with, over 14,000 people, which is amazing.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
blessed that growing up here in the islands was the fact that the person you're talking to might be related.
That's
So you
true.
better be nice.
That's a
And as
great
you get
lesson.
as you get older, people would ask us as kids if we were acting up and acting stupid, who's your mother? Who's your father? Then we got more afraid, because if they go tell mom and dad what's up, we might get in trouble. So you just came to the assumption that everybody's related and they might know your parents, so you better be good.
That's right. But we can go further in that. We are all God's children, so in fact, we are all
Exactly.
related. So
Yep.
let's treat people kindly with compassion, and you know
I
all
agree.
the all the good things that we're called to be doing. Uh, well, what keeps you going back? I mean, I know that you do this, when you're not working, you're showing up, you are delivering the message that you have, you're giving these paddleboard lessons for free. So, what keeps you coming back?
I think uh, partially because I started late. You know, just Monday. Today's Wednesday. On Monday, uh, you might have heard of Willie K. He passed away of cancer at the age
Mm,
of 61,
mm,
and he's a great entertainer, and he had a lot of great music, and he touched people through his music, through his gift. And I think he got started when he was a young kid, but he never got known until he was in his 30s. I started when I was 49 here. I'm 59, coming up on 60 years old. It seems like the balance is off, meaning that prior to 49, yeah, I was a good dad. I was a good person. I never really did anything bad to anybody, but I really wasn't doing God's work.
mm.
So I think once you get caught up in this process of doing God's work, it's kind of hard to put a timestamp on it, to put a label on it, to put or what time, when do I punch in? Or when God needs you, that's when you punch in. Yeah.
That's
And
right.
so I get jazzed about the fact that he's still using me. So therefore I get excited about the potential of that one person. Who's going to be that person that going to come to the Bay and going to tell me this story that probably going to make me cry? But oh well, through that process, we can cry together and build this great relationship. You know,
Mhm.
because again, I honestly feel like I'm this tool or this vessel that God uses and the Holy Spirit uses to touch these people in a special way. And if I don't show up, man, they might miss the turn.
Mm.
If I don't show up, they might miss their window. I might be the person that they were supposed to seek for the last 10 years. I don't know what the outcome is. Yeah? In my line of work, I work in a refinery. I've been there for 23 years. In the beginning, we talked about incidents and how in the olden days is because of no safety regulations, people are dying in refineries.
Mm.
So they did this study, and I like to use this study because it was a study, and they said that in catastrophic event, there's 7 things that has to happen before the place burns down. So our goal in life is to get it through the top 5, 6 things before it really burns down. So you're watching for incidents, you're watching for misalignment, you're watching for stuff that's incorrect on the way to 7. And every day you hope you never get to 3 or 4, but you're looking for those numbers so nothing aligns to make it messed up. So if you flip that up, you flip that backwards, like in our situation, what many moves, how many videos, how many stories, how many times you had to go on Facebook for us to get into this conversation?
Yeah.
So if you put that in perspective, if that person is sitting in front of you and you have an opportunity to influence that person in a positive way, what did God do in their life to get them sitting in front of you?
Mm.
And to me, that's kind of crazy to think after I sit with people, how they came halfway across the world and they were sitting in on cafe in Canada, and the guy across the table said, "Oh, you guys going to Hawaii? You guys should go see this guy, Uncle George."
That's exactly how it works.
And they end up at the Bay, and I have this responsibility that I'm excited about to share this story. Over the years, my story is getting longer. Stuff happens. And there was a point in my time where I was editing my story.
Mm.
Then the Holy
Mm.
Spirit came over me and said, "Stop that."
Yeah.
And then I realized that how am I to determine why God sent them and therefore edited my story, and they might miss what God sent them for.
That's right. I,
So
I
I started
totally agree with
telling the
that.
story because they were sent to hear my story in its entirety, and to that process, uh, I have continued to touch people.
Mhm.
And one of the things we like to do in Hawaii, we like hugs.
Yes.
And you get some nice hugs from women because they practice all the time.
Yes, we do.
But man, I get some hugs from these men of men, Marine Corps guys, hardcore men, and they hug me in a way that is just so special. You know, to break down a person, a male of that stature, and get them to turn in a conversation. In an hour's time, people would turn and hug me in this special way because first they heard my story, and then they got to experience their quiet time. And the whole cycle of events that happened within an hour and a half changed people drastically. And I become this Uncle George person that I really wasn't intended to be, but I am. And I
Well, I,
think
I think you are
that's special.
intended to be that. God definitely chose you to be that. And so you may not have thought that you would be, sitting there at the Bay and we'd be having this conversation all these years later. But it's no surprise to God. And that's the amazing thing about him, and how when we allow the Holy Spirit to really guide us, when we lean in and start listening as to, why are we here? And
Yeah.
as you said, let's not edit our stories because we've learned and we've grown from our stories. People can relate to us when you start opening up, and your life isn't about perfection. It's about struggle, because every life has some struggle. And it took me a long time to get that. For the longest time, I thought there were perfect people, perfect families, perfect work situations. And then as I got older and really started to experience life more fully, through my Christ walk especially, I learned that we're all here and we all have challenges, we all have struggles, and we're here to help support each other through those times, and then be able to, as you said, glorify God in the process by, coming out the other side, a stronger human being.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Aw. Well, how else are you finding your story helping people? Like, is there anything in particular that maybe you want to just, as we close, just leave the audience with, as far as, your thoughts around Bay of Dreams or?
Well, one of the things that added to my story that happened to me recently was the passing of a coworker. Young
Mm,
man, mid-30s, father of four, making a ton of
oh
money.
gosh. Oh,
And when that happened, it kind of reminded me of my mom. Why? Because back in the 60s and 70s, life was different. We weren't in a Christian house, and my mom was getting abused by her husband, my dad.
mm,
And it was internal, so meaning that everybody in the house knew. But when mom left the house, because of the culture back then, she physically fixed herself up. She makes her look good. She took care of herself so that whole wide world never knew that she was getting abused. To this day,
yeah,
most of the people, most of the family never knew. But we grew up in the house, we've seen it. Yeah. Uh, and so one of the things that I'm sharing through that process of the grief of losing mom, and then what was her gift, what was her message that I needed to share with the world, was that people can look good, smell good, but on the inside be messed up.
that's true.
And so my coworker was in the same situation, and we was working one day, and I got to visit with him. He came to fix some equipment in my area and talk about fixing some stuff. We visited about the equipment, but we never talked about our lives. Shortly after that, he was overcome by his challenges in his world, I guess, and he took his life. So at that point, I made a decision that I'm gonna ask people, regardless of their appearance, regardless if they make me uncomfortable, more so, I should ask them, "How you doing?" And I started asking people time and time again, "How you doing?" And through that process, a lot of the times you will come out, "Oh, nobody ever asked me that." I said, well, because you probably drive a Mercedes, because you're a dentist, you live in Canada, you look good, smell good, so you never have problems. Yeah. Or you an entertainer that sings on stage and you look great on the stage singing, so nobody's gonna ask you. But Uncle George would ask them because those are the people that make me feel uncomfortable. And they turn around and start sharing the issues and challenges. Why? Because just like everybody else, uh, they're human. They have
Yes.
challenges. And so I got in this box, I guess, soapbox, and I got caught up in this whole middle class situation. The middle class situation is this: we all part of this group of people. We may not know each other personally, but we have the same challenges. First of all, we're not gonna get nothing for free because we make too much money. But we don't make enough money so we have all the happiness we desire in our lives. So when those people, those guys are banging their head against the wall, they're trying to make it for their family, trying to feed their family, pay the bills, get a nice house, and having a hard time. We, as partners in this challenge, should go across to that person and say, "How you doing?"
Hmm.
Just so that person knows that somebody in this whole wide world cares enough to ask them, "How are you doing?"
Yeah. And mean it.
And and
And
mean
mean
it.
it.
And
And mean
listen again. Close your
it.
mouth. "How are you
Yes.
doing?" Close your mouth.
That's right.
And listen and hear their issues and challenges. And it's so
Hmm.
simple. And then follow that up as you build your relation with that person to Okay, can I pray for that?
Mm-hmm.
Do you mind if I pray for that? Oh, by the way, I prayed for that. How is it going? You know, because you
Yeah.
now you know insight to somebody's life because you created this relationship because you didn't ask them how they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so lately I've been using that a lot of the day, uh, sometimes a little bit uncomfortable, but at the end of the day, it all works out. The good things are never comfortable. People don't
That's
realize
right.
that. Getting stronger, lifting weights, running around, paddling the canoe to get faster is uncomfortable. But man, when you get those victories are tremendous. You
Yes.
kind of got to do what you got to do
That's
to
right.
get that victories in life. And sometimes you got to just sit down and say, man, I don't know enough about this person to make me feel comfortable about walking away. Let's just ask them how they're doing.
Mm. That's a good message right there. I think for everybody on this call to, especially
Yeah, in
during
this
these
day and
these
age,
times,
yeah,
right? It's like, we ask that question, how are you? How you doing? But then, like I said, really mean it. And I believe that in your heart, you do mean that. And when you're asking, you're looking for a truthful response, not sugarcoating it or editing our life, like you said, in the response, but actually coming up and saying, yeah, well, you asked how I'm doing. I'm going to tell you. And like you said,
yeah,
you wait and you listen, and then you're able to establish that relationship with that person.
yeah, yep, yep.
Yes. Oh, well, Uncle George, this has been fantastic. I have enjoyed talking story with you and finding out a little bit about more about what you're doing, and really being able to give you a platform to talk about Bay of Dreams, to talk about why it's so important for you to continue to show up at the Bay, and for you to just continue to bless people through what has become a ministry through
Mhm.
stand-up paddleboarding, which is fantastic.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time and having me on and talking sorry. I really enjoy talking sorry, and uh, I don't do it often enough with people far away.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that we had the opportunity today. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right. And we'll see you soon. Bye bye.
You take care.